Hello out there. This is Old Bodies Outside, and this is Brian Peterson. And today on the show, I have Jeremiah Galyon, and I am super excited to hear his story. Back in 2019, Jeremiah survived a massive heart attack in which he had 100% blockage in his heart. To overcome that blockage, the doctors put him into an induced coma. And during that time, he had no pulse for 1 hour and 58 minutes. Miraculously, Jeremiah has survived the heart attack, and he's back to doing all the stuff that he loved prior to the heart attack and even doing more. Before the heart attack, he was big into running ultra marathons, and he's since gotten back into that. He's run 100K ultra marathon, and he's also runs a surf shop in Pacifica, California called Sonlight Surf Shop. So Jeremiah, great to see you and great to have you on here. It's been a long time since I've seen you.
You too, BP, man. It's been a while, dude. It's great to see you. Great to hear your voice, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining today. And I kind of just wanted to start off this conversation and get us kind of settled a little bit into the past and what life was like before your heart attack. Again, that heart attack happened in 2019. And Jeremiah, I moved away from San Diego in 2014. We were a part of the same running group there. We did a lot of runs together. We'd see each other at races. We also did a famous run for the two of us, which we ran up to Mount Miguel Mountain and loved doing that. And so prior to your heart attack, Jeremiah, how often were you doing ultra marathons and training and being active and doing that stuff?
Yeah. So, ultras became an interest to me just a couple years before meeting you. I was pretty fresh to it when I met you and, going on runs with you, getting spanked and getting smoked up mountains. That was eye-opening for me that I needed to work harder in the sport if I wanted to have any success. But I've always been into athletics. I've always enjoyed doing stuff, being outside, being parts of teams, and even doing, solo stuff. I'm not great at just sitting around. I'd rather be doing something. So got into ultra running through a friend of mine who was actually a part of my Bible study. And it's a pretty funny story. He asked me, hey, if I qualify for the San Diego 100, will you pace me? Will you do the night portion with me? And I would do, at that point I'd ran one marathon. I'd do maybe a half marathon a year. I was maybe a jogger. I wasn't a runner. It was one race a year. And so I forgot all about it. Time passes. 3 weeks prior to San Diego 100, he asked, hey, I qualified. Are you still willing to pace me?
Oh, wow.
And it was going to be like a 30-mile section, right, at night. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, no, 'cause I hadn't been running. So I did two trail runs to get ready for it. I did a 9-miler and an 11-miler.
Oh, wow.
Bought a pair of $27 trail shoes at like Big Five Sporting Goods.
Nice.
And, met him at mile 50. And we took off. The sun went down and we went all night, crossed a stream. It was like 34 degrees outside. Watched the sun come up as we're heading back up to Sunrise. Do you remember Sunrise Aid Station up there on the top in the San Diego 100? So we do that 30-mile, kind of section. And I was so worried about him not making the rest of it because he was in bad shape that I was like, dude, I'll do the next 20 with you. And so I have no pack, no water bottle. I'd never been over a marathon, so I've gone farther than I've ever gone. And I did.
And you're agreeing to go.
So I did 50 miles with him. He was giving me drinks from his Camelback, dude. I had no water. The heat's coming up off the Anza Borrego Desert. It was bad, dude. He ended up basically, crewing me and supporting me so that I could get to the finish. It was horrible pacing duties, but
oh my gosh!
After that finished, I was hooked, man. Just like the atmosphere, the community. I said I want to do this next year, and so then I ran a qualifier and got into San Diego 100 the next year. So
that story doesn't surprise me for you, though. I mean, you pretty much jumped into doing a 50-miler and just went for it. And the times I've been running with you, the times I've watched you race, I've never seen anyone suffer as hard as Jeremiah. And a classic story was, I don't know what year it was. I think it was maybe 2014. I saw you at the San Diego 100. And I maybe saw you a couple times because I was working in an aid station that gets traffic kind of both directions, the Penny Pines aid station, which is on both sides of the road. But the second time you came through, I don't know what mile that would have been. It was nighttime, maybe mile 60, 65. And you came through and you were just, man, like I was like, he's hurting bad. And Jeremiah, you come in, and it's like, you got like your head down, you're like, okay, I can do this. And like, you got like your ankles, like, I don't know, like you had ankle issues going on and you had all sorts of stuff.
It was all duct taped. Yeah. I was running with, Nicodemus. Oh, I think his last name is De La Rosa. It used to be Holland.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He finished Barkley marathons. Like he, myself and a couple of buddies, we were out in the desert. Have you ever been out to the wooden train trestle? Like that longest one?
I have not.
Like, oh, dude, super old, super sketchy train trestle that covers this huge gap out in the desert in like east of San Diego. And you got to hike miles in to get to it. Well, we were way off trail and I just like tore a couple ligaments in my ankle. Oh, and wow. I didn't want to ruin their day. And so I was like, oh, guys, it was Hunt, Nicodemus, and somebody else, and maybe Igor. Do you remember Igor?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I kind of tried to play it off, and we just watched it like swell over the outside of my shoe. You ever roll your ankle and you can just watch it swell and get just right before your eyes?
Jeremiah. No.
Oh, dude, you're lucky, man. So we just watched it swell over the outside of my shoe, and Hunt gave me his hiking poles, but I had to get up out of this ravine. So I kind of crawled out of the ravine and went like 8 or 9 miles on this miserable ankle, just like a month and a half before that race. And I didn't know I was going to be. Oh, so anyways, that's why my ankle was duct taped, because I had just destroyed it running with those guys off trail. But anyways, yeah, when I saw you, I was pretty trail drunk. Like I was not fully with it.
Yeah, you were trail drunk, but you definitely have a higher tolerance, well, what appears to be a higher tolerance from pain than a lot of runners out there that I've seen. And I've been running with a lot of runners out there, and you always have an ability to, push yourself and keep going and whatnot. But I wanted to get back to that first time you paced. What year was that?
Oh, man.
And the reason I'm wondering, did we see each other out there? Because I paced Paul Jesse his first 100, which was San Diego 100, and I think it's 2011 or 2012.
That was my second 100, I think.
Okay.
I think.
No. The one that you paced, though, your very first one, what year was that?
That would have been 2 years prior to you pacing Paul Jesse.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And he just got into hard rock, huh?
Yes. Yep. Yes. And man, I have been doing a lot of texting with Paul Jesse because I'm so excited for him. And I'm really excited for Paul. I saw Paul over the summer, and we both were talking about hard rock and how excited we are. And I think like I am heavily leaning towards getting out there and cheering him on. I mean, getting into hard rock is so hard as it is. And Paul's been waiting for this. He's been working, nonstop on those qualifiers. And so to see Paul get into the race, I couldn't be happier and more excited for him. He said when he saw his name get pulled, he actually he kind of teared up a little bit because he's like, man, it's been a journey.
It's so rad. Well, dude, he's made for that type of race. There's a guy that can suffer, and that course is just gnarly. But yeah, I was excited for him.
I would say, training with you, training with Paul, the two people that I really loved training with, just because the suffering doesn't stop you two. It's continue on no matter what.
Right on. Yeah. So, it's man. Yeah, I hear you, brother. Yeah.
It's good to catch up on. You and I have not caught up in a while. And I saw the news of the heart attack through Instagram and whatnot, and it was just wild and whatnot. And so in 2019, that's when your heart attack happened. And so if you don't mind running through some of where were you when it happened and kind of what do you remember?
Yeah, for sure, man. So I was in Hawaii on the Big Island with my two kids. At the time, I think they were 5 and 8, and or 6 and 8, 6 and 8. And I was out there. My in-laws live there. My wife's folks are there. She was in Pacifica working the surf shop because August is a busy time for us. So I'm out there, surfing, hanging out with the family, hanging out with the kids, going to the beach every day. And, I'd been there for several days already. I surfed. It was a Friday morning. I surfed an hour and a half that morning and came home and told my in-laws that I was feeling a little off. Like I felt like I was kind of nauseous. And at this point, we had no idea what was happening, And so they said, "Hey, we'll watch the kids. No worries. You can go rest and don't worry about it. We're going to take the kids to the beach." So they were in the garage looking for my daughter's goggles, and they were probably in there maybe 3 to 5 minutes searching for the goggles. And my father-in-law walks past the bathroom door and saw me laying on the floor in the bathroom, and he thought, "Oh, he's feeling sick, so he's laying on the cold tile." But then he kind of thought, wait, no, he was laying kind of awkward. So he leans back, looks in, says my name, and I didn't respond. And he walked in there and did the face slap thing, and my head just slumped to the side, and I was already starting to turn purple, and I had no pulse and wasn't breathing. So he doesn't even know CPR. He's seen it done on TV, and a doctor told him once, if you ever have to do it hard and fast. So he started chest compressions and did it for 8 minutes by himself until emergency services got there. Wow. When they got there, they, started defibrillating. They took over compressions and they did another 20 minutes and they got a pulse back. My father-in-law remembers hearing them say, we got a blood pressure after about 20 minutes of working on me. And my kids were there and saw it. And my mother-in-law took the kids and put them in the car outside, so they didn't have to witness this traumatic event. Sorry, I do get a little emotional sometimes when I think about what they had to go through. But the window was down in the car a little bit, and they could hear, screaming about that I was purple and that I had no heart rate or no heartbeat. So yeah, they get a pulse back and they put me in the ambulance and rush me to the hospital. My father-in-law follows them and is in the emergency room talking to the emergency room doctor. And I'm laying on the bed right there in the room. And while they're talking, my father-in-law looks over and says, "Is that normal?" And I was kind of like convulsing, kind of like bucking in the bed, and I was having another heart attack. And like in the movies, the doctor yells for the nurses. Nurses run in, jump on the bed, and start doing compressions, get the defibrillating things, and start going through the whole thing again. And they worked on me for about 30 minutes that time, and they got a pulse back again. The emergency room doctor tells my father-in-law, "Hey, you might as well go home. What you just saw, that's what we can expect to have happen over the next couple of days. We just don't know what's going to happen yet or if he's going to make it." So father-in-law goes home, and at this point they're calling my wife, in Pacifica, saying, "Hey, you need to get here." And she's got to jump on a plane the next day, and
by herself too, huh?
Dude, by herself.
Yeah.
So she's standing in line at, the airport and just breaks down, and some random lady just puts her hand on her back, and just hands her a Kleenex, just little things like that go a long ways, So there was that aspect of just humanity coming in, right? When early the next morning, I don't know exactly what hour, but early the next morning, I had what was called a cardiovascular event. It wasn't another heart attack, but my heart was so badly damaged from the first two that it just stopped for about an hour. So they said they worked on me for about an hour to get, to see if they could get my heart to start beating on its own again. And so that was the third event within 12 hours, basically. And at that point, they were pretty sure I was going to be brain dead because I had gone so long without oxygen. And they basically told the family that, hey, we're going to keep him alive until you get here so you can say your goodbyes. So I had friends and family coming from all over the place to say their goodbyes. They had all the organ donors lined up. And when everybody got there to say goodbye, the first thing my daughter tells my wife is it's going to be really hard to not have a daddy anymore, because it just like, they thought it was over, Kona Community Hospital said, hey, we got to get him over to Oahu where they have a cath lab and can do surgery to try to fix whatever blockages there are. And, Oahu said, there's no point in sending him. He's going to be brain dead. So pull him out of the induced coma. And they induce those comas to try to they want your body to be able to fight whatever it's trying to fight as best it can. So they've got hypothermia protocol where they put you on ice to try to keep as much blood to the brain as possible. So they start to pull me out of the induced coma, which is a real risky thing. Because if you do it too fast or take away the wrong combo of drugs they're giving you, you could die again pretty easy. So they pull me out of the induced coma and see that I still have brain function. And the doctor walked out of the room and started crying because the doctor thought there was no way. So they go to put me on. I was seventh in line for life flight for a helicopter to get to Oahu. And my best friend named Brian and my cousin said, hey, that's not going to work. We don't know if he's going to make it. We need to get him over there. So they booked a medical jet to fly me over there so I didn't have to wait in line for the helicopter. I was supposed to leave at 5 p.m., but I wasn't stable enough to leave to even just move me to the plane until 1 a.m. And when on that jet plane or that flight over to Oahu, my best friend just told me this. He was on the plane with me, and I didn't know this until about 6 months ago. He said that I died again while on that flight, and the two nurses that were there to try to keep me alive, did whatever they did. They kept me alive again on that flight. So I get over there, and they as soon as I was stable enough to go in, they went through my wrist and put a couple stents in, to open things up in there. But dude, there was all kinds of other stuff happening. I was throwing clots everywhere from an autoimmune response that we didn't even know I had prior to the heart attack. It didn't cause the heart attack, but it was just, I was having allergic reactions to medication. I had to have multiple blood transfusions because I lost so much blood inside where I had a collapsed lung from all the chest compressions. And it was just like heavy. Like for my loved ones, it was, oh, he's going to make it. Oh no, he's going to die. Oh, he's going to make it. Oh no, he's going to die. Like, so it wasn't hard on me, dude. Cause I was dead. I was unconscious. I was, in an induced coma the whole time. But what my loved ones had to go through, it's like full on PTSD. My daughter now is 12. She turned 9 while I was in the hospital, while I was in the intensive care unit. Wow. And so she's 12 now. She'll still hear a song that she heard while that was happening, while that stuff was going on, and she'll just start crying. Oh, so yeah, it's just stuff you don't want your loved ones to have to deal with, Just heavy.
Not at all. Not at all. So what is that? So you said you died multiple times, and what does that mean exactly? Yeah.
So I don't know what medically would be actually consists of dying, right? But multiple times mean my heart stopped beating and they had to use chest compressions and defibrillating, that electrical shock stuff to keep blood pumping through my body.
Wow.
So when I say that I died, my heart stopped beating, and it took them a significant amount of time of doing chest compressions to keep me alive. Yeah.
And how many times did your heart stop and you needed significant chest compressions and that stuff to get you back?
Yeah. So it stopped 4 times. Now, I usually just talk about the 3 times totaling an hour and 58 minutes because I just learned about the 4th time on the plane.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, like my best friend really, he doesn't really talk about it because it's still such a heavy traumatic event for him. But so I don't know all the particulars about the jet ride, but I know at least those 3 other times. I know a little more specifics on those.
Yeah. And the doctor that when you survived and the doctor, he walked out crying. Do you still keep in contact with him?
Yeah, Dr. Sanchez. So I've talked to him, on the via FaceTime on the phone. And last time I was in Hawaii, I went to Kona Community Hospital to see them, and he was off that day. So he wasn't there, but man, I'd love to see him.
Yeah.
But I got to see, actually last time I was in Kona was just this last February, a little less than a year ago. And surfing, I lacerated my foot. So I had to go get it fixed there.
By Dr. Sanchez, hopefully.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, and so I asked him, is Dr. Sanchez here? And they're like, no, he's off today. But there was a nurse there that remembered me from 3 years prior.
Wow.
And I was sitting in the emergency room and I heard a couple nurses going through my file in the other room, like just freaking out, like reading my file. And one of them came in and like, your file reads like a movie, which was pretty funny. But yeah, it was, I got to go and see them and tell them how grateful I was for them, which was cool. Yeah.
So once you got onto the recovery road, you had physical recovery, but there was also the family psychological recovery. And first off, let's kind of hear about that. How did your family recover from that? I mean, that is just the worst roller coaster ever.
Oh, dude, you just having the people you care about most have to go through something that traumatic because of you. Now, granted, all right, didn't do it on purpose, right? There wasn't really anything I could do to change it, but is hard to deal with. It's harder for them to deal with, but
right.
For me, there's a tremendous amount of guilt because of it. So
wow.
I remember one of my first memories laying in the intensive care unit, I was intubated still. So, right, I still had the breathing tube in, but they brought me to the first thing I did to my wife is I used sign language and I signed sorry to her because I felt so bad about what I knew how hard it was for them, So that was tough, that they had to deal with that. The first thing I remember hearing when they brought me out of it was hearing my daughter's voice say, "Daddy, wake up," and it was, my room sounded like the Super Bowl, right? Like, cause we're in the intensive care unit. Normally they don't even let family in there, but because they didn't know if I was going to live, all my family and friends were in there and they were, cheering and going nuts because God kept me here or whatever.
Yeah.
It
is so miraculous. My gosh, man. And I got to imagine when you started coming together there, it was quite a scene there in your room.
Oh, dude, it was, and it was one of those things too, right? Like my heart was so beat up that we didn't know what I would be able to do even if I lived. right? Like,
Yeah.
is my heart going to bounce back? Is it going to forever be something that limits what I can do? Now, at that point, I didn't care. I just wanted one more day with my wife and kids. I just wanted, one more moment to be able to hug them and laugh with them and tuck them into bed. You know what I mean? And hold my wife's hand.
Yeah.
And there isn't a day or a moment that goes by that I try not to remember that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, recovery, dude. Like it was touch and go. I wasn't allowed, because I had like so many blood clots thrown around in my arms and lungs and stuff. I wasn't allowed to fly at first even once I got out of the hospital. So we had to stay. And I remember, we're on Oahu, where famous surf spot up on the North Shore, Pipeline. There's all kinds of sweet surf spots up there. And owning a surf shop and being a surfer, I wanted to go see it. By the time we drove from Honolulu, from the town to the country up on the North Shore, I was so exhausted I couldn't even get out of the car just to go walk 20 feet to look at it. So it was a long recovery, man. Like, and that's something that interesting about like the heart is it will regulate you, right? Like being an ultra runner, being a lifelong athlete and active person, I wanted to like attack it and come back and try to just charge it. Like, dude, as soon as I can walk more than 10 feet, I'm going to start running, right? Like, and so you have these thoughts in your head, but the heart will simply just sit you down, right? Like you'll get to a point where you're like, nope, I can't, I better just sit down here on the curb and rest because I can't continue. I can't keep going,
Wow.
So I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't know what the rest of my life would look like. And I was at peace with that, right? Like I was okay if I never got to do anything active again. If it meant spending more, seeing my kids and wife and friends for another day, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And putting a pause on the recovery for a second here, I want to go back to the induced coma, and when you were in this induced coma, and how long were you, you're in a coma? Was it an hour and 58 minutes? Is that the amount of time you're in coma, or is that different from the amount of time you didn't have a pulse?
Totally different. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was in that induced coma for, let's see, Friday, I think. So Friday around like maybe around 1:30, 2:30 in the afternoon is when I had the heart attack. They get me to the hospital. Then Saturday early morning, I had that cardiovascular event, right? So those were kind of the gnarliest moments for the heart. And then Sunday night, everybody flew in Saturday and Sunday. Sunday at 5 p.m. is when I was supposed to fly to Oahu, but couldn't go till Monday morning, 1 a.m. And this whole time I'm in the induced coma, except Sunday when they tried to take me out of it very carefully to see if I had brain function. So once they saw I had brain function, they put you back in the induced coma, fly me to Oahu, where I stayed in the induced coma for at least another 2 days.
Yeah.
And only because they have to get you stabilized some way before, because they don't being conscious isn't going to help you if you're barely alive, right? Like, so they put you under so that your body can basically, or your brain can try to, deal with the things it needs to deal with without being awake and with other stimuli, at least that's my understanding of it,
Yeah. And when, during the induced coma, do you have any level of reflections on that?
Oh yeah, dude. So I get this question a lot, right? Like everyone's like, did you see the tunnel, man? Did you see the light? And dude, I think because I went there's two possible reasons I have no memory. I see two possible reasons. One, my brain went without oxygen for so long that I lost a week of memory. I don't remember the whole week prior to the event. Or two,
Interesting.
my brain is separating itself from a traumatic event and I can't remember it because it was traumatic. I don't know which of those, because I've had like gnarly concussions where I had multiple day amnesia and couldn't remember a few days prior to it. And I don't know if that's just brain injury or if it's brain protection, like it's separating. I don't know. Yeah. So I had no memory of the week prior, and once I was able to go back, because we visited a couple times since, I got a few snippets of memory back once I went back kind of to the scene, right? I do not remember dropping, right? I don't remember how it felt, which is kind of a bummer, because I would love to be like, I'm feeling like the time that I had the heart attack
again.
Yeah, no idea what that felt like.
Wow.
All I know is I felt nauseous. And I only know that because that's what they told me I was telling them. And I couldn't remember my in-laws' house, but now I kind of remember a couple things being there and what I did. We went to the store, maybe an hour before I had the heart attack. And while we were at the store, we went back there and I was like, nah, I don't remember. And then I was standing in line to check out when I went back to visit. And I remembered standing in line right before the heart attack. Yeah. So I got a few little bits of memory back, but snippets. Not much. Not much. Yeah.
And no white tunnel.
No white tunnel, man. Dang it. That'd make a killer book, dude.
Yeah.
Sell a lot of copies. But no.
Death without the white tunnel.
That's right, dude. Yeah. I might be able to be a denier of the white tunnel if I had memory of the whole thing, right? But I don't remember, and so if there was one, I don't remember it. Yeah.
Gosh, our brains do some interesting stuff. And, continuing on talking about the brain, how quickly, as you're waking up, were the doctors able to assess if you had any level of brain damage, whether severe, not so severe, maybe long lasting? How are they able to assess that?
Yeah. So here's the great news. I didn't have much brain function before. And so I didn't lose anything, I don't know, man.
Almost concussions got you.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you. So that is hard to say. When I came back, they were they're asking me questions like, what's your kids' birthdays, right? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't remember at first. So I don't know if that's because they're giving you such a cocktail of different drugs to keep you alive, that I don't know how much was from that or how much was brain fog from, going without oxygen that amount of, a certain amount of time. I don't know. But yeah, it did take a while to come out of that brain fog kind of thing. And now I feel like I'm back to normal, Good. I don't remember how long it took, but it took maybe a few months to kind of get back to where I felt like I had full cognitive function,
So you had some level of fogginess for multiple months there.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, it's one of those things you don't know if you're gonna recover. You don't know if that's gonna be the new normal.
Yeah.
But,
jeez.
Yeah.
Jeez. And so
pretty wild.
You're getting back onto the road to recovery. You were mentioning your heart was quite the regulator, and so physically speaking, how did that look like? And ultimately, I think a couple of years later, is that correct? You ran a 100K ultramarathon. Yeah. So why don't we kind of look at that time span leading up to that 100K?
Yeah. So the heart is kind of measured in EF, or ejection fraction. So that's how much percentage of the blood is pumped out per squeeze. Okay. And normal is between like 55 and 70, right? If you'll hear people talk about their EF is whatever. At one point, my EF, if your heart's not beating, it's 0, right? But at one point, even once it was beating, it was at 18. My EF was 18, and that's not even enough really to sustain life. So that is not looking good. And then I think by the time I got home, my EF was like maybe 38 or 40. So still well below normal, and so low, I'm not so sure I ever would have been able to do anything in an endurance setting ever again. But as time went and, I started to become active again, my EF now is just at the minimum level. It's now at like 55. So my heart has bounced back. There's still a portion of it that's dead, that no longer functions from the heart attack. That part went without blood for too long, and it does not work anymore. Okay. But my heart has bounced back, and I'm now in the normal level, just at the bottom of it, but it's bounced back that much. So, what was it before? Don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nowadays when I'm running, I'm like, am I really tired and slow because I'm just old? Or is it because of the heart attack? I don't know, man.
Not all my heart works anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, dude. But yeah, recovery took a long time. 2 years after I did the Castle Peak 100K, I told I asked my cardiologist, because everybody, my whole family was like, why do you want to do an ultra? Why would you risk it? Right.
Right.
And so I was like, hey, I'll check with my cardiologist. I asked the cardiologist if it would be okay if I did a trail race. I didn't tell her it was a 62 miler, like in the mountains, so, and she's like, yeah, sure. And so I could tell everybody, my cardiologist said it's fine. Like, don't, it's all good. But yeah, so I went into that with the main goal of surviving, right? Like, I have no desire to risk myself so that I can't be a father or a husband anymore. That's right. I'm not that kind of guy. I'd rather be here for them. So the goal was to go, all right, I'm going to go super mellow. I want to see if my heart can last through that many hours of running, and it did. I don't think my heart kept me from finishing it. I still struggled. Like what ultra don't you struggle in,
Right.
So yeah, completed that. And now I'm kind of going, dude, can I try to run at my fastest pace, right? Like, now I want to try to race it for my ability, and because I know I can go and survive it. And now the motivation is, oh, dude, I want to try to race again, Yeah. And so that keeps it fun for me. And I'll never compete at a high level as far as nationally or whatever. But I want to compete with myself and see what level I can do still. And that's really fun and exciting. And that's to be determined. We'll see,
Yeah, that's fantastic, Jeremiah. I mean, you are quite the runner. I know you don't really give yourself maybe the credit for it, but I mean, you've finished some great times. You run so strong. So what if you going back and kind of figuring out, like, okay, can I still hit the same level of athleticism? What do you think that would look like? Would that be a 50K race, a 50-mile race, 100K, or just be like, let's do it. Let's do San Diego 100. I've done it before. Let's see how I compare.
Yeah, dude, I just went down to race Cuyamaca 100K.
No way.
I haven't done that race in long time. I think it was 9 years ago I did it.
Okay, I did the inaugural year, which was
nice, dude.
What year was that?
I think I was a year or two after that or something. Yeah. And, so like I still had like my name on the list of, top
Good.
So many.
Nice.
Which is, it's probably been so bumped out now it's not even on the list anymore. But I wanted to go down and see how I could compete against how I did it back then.
Yes. Yeah.
And I went down and I thought, golly, my same story with every ultra runner. Oh, my training. Oh, I'm getting injured. I couldn't. It's not. It's never the perfect lead up. And went down and had my first ever DNF.
Oh,
First
really?
ever DNF. And so it's like, and
Wow.
you know, and
I didn't
that's
expect
never
that.
happened. No, dude, you know, when I was younger, I wrapped up my identity a little bit in my performance. And so DNF was always like, oh, I don't, you know, in my back of my mind, I would never say this, but I would be like, you should just, you signed up for it, you finish it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, do whatever you can. And now, when things get taken away from you, right? Like, whether it's whatever you think your identity's in, if that gets taken away, it makes you step back and go, wait a second, what's going on here? And through this whole process, not being able to perform at the level that I used to has given me a great perspective in going, you know what? My identity is not in how I perform, right? Like that, I'm a Christian, right? I follow Jesus. That's where my identity
Mm-hmm.
is. And it's been a great reminder for me to go, you know what, dude? I don't have to win a race. I don't have to run a super fast time. That's not what gives me worth. You know what I mean? My worth is
Yeah.
in something else. It's in something a lot bigger than me.
Yep.
And so it's it has allowed me to enjoy doing activities at whatever level happens on that day, right? It no longer has to be at the level that I think it needs to be. It can be at any level, and I can still take great joy out of it. Dude,
Yeah.
I only made it 50K of this race,
It's
and
great.
I couldn't wipe the smile off my face, right? Dude, I tore
I
something
love it.
I tore something behind my knee. I wasn't going to make the cutoffs. And so I was like, okay, you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
And sure, I would have rather not gotten injured. You know,
Of course. Of
I would
course.
have rather raced against my old time, and because that's fun and exciting. I like those goals to chase, and they're
Mm-hmm.
motivating for me. But it doesn't have to be. You know, like that's
Yeah.
okay. There are things that are way more important than that. And I got my wife, I've got my kids, I have my friends and my family, and just another breath that I'm able to take. You know, and if I can share that stoke with somebody else, and it makes an impact, uh, then dude, that's rad. That's how
Absolutely.
cool is that? You know,
That's
so
as cool as it gets, man.
yeah,
And I think it's interesting how we wrap ourselves up in these kind of almost small little pieces of identity, like, oh, I'm never
yeah,
going to DNF, and I think the same
yeah,
thing too of myself. So I'm
yeah,
wrapped up
yeah,
in that, like I'm guilty as
totally, dude.
charged.
Yeah,
Um, but like, gosh, like I was as you're describing that, I was thinking about how our identities are always kind of changing and whatnot, different experiences in life, but it's during those really big moments in life that the identity changes based off of changing of perspectives, changing of, you have a little bit more value in just the moments, getting to spend an extra 10 minutes with your daughter, your son, your wife, that type of stuff. And so surviving your heart attack, what other ways do you think it has kind of maybe changed your daily approach to life?
yeah, dude. You know, it's like all the cliche things you think would apply, right? Where
Yeah.
it's all those things where you go, gosh, you know, all the little things don't matter. I know so many people that no longer talk to their parents, or no longer talk to a sibling, or no longer talk to a friend because that person did something, right? Like, yeah, of course they did something. We're all human beings, and we do dumb stuff all the time. And which is a bummer, right? I wish we didn't. And it doesn't mean that doing dumb stuff is okay. You know, you should strive to hopefully not do those things to hurt other people. But if that happens, so what? Any one of us at any time for any reason could be gone.
Yeah.
Anytime, any reason, any one of us. Dude, I've never done drugs. I haven't had a beer since I was 12, right? All my cholesterol levels are in the normal range. I could have done every test the hospital has the week of I had that heart attack, and I still dropped dead, right? Like,
Yeah.
dude, any one of us, anytime. A car could jump the curb right now and come plowing into your house. Like,
Right.
you just don't, any one of us. So the small stuff, who cares? Like, yeah, I get it. You shouldn't ignore hurt and pain, and you shouldn't allow people to continue to treat you in a way that's not right. But your identity's not in them. It's not their opinion of you that makes you, right? Like, so they can have whatever opinion and treat you however they want, but you can still love on them and let them know that you care about them. And maybe it'll make a difference for them. Maybe it'll impact their day in a better way, So it's just like all the small stuff, who cares? And it's one thing to say that, it's another thing to practice it. And so I have an easier way to practice that because I can remember, holy smokes, dude, this happened to me. I've got another day to live. God kept me here for some reason. Don't know why, but, I'm going to try not to ignore whatever that reason is. And I'm going to try to, live in a healthy way, being joyful for every moment,
Yeah, Jeremiah, that's really great what you said, and it got me thinking of two words: grace and forgiveness. And that's something that I know me and my wife talk a lot about in our relationship because we're funny humans. We do clumsy things and we're goofballs, and sometimes that's intentional to have fun with each other, and sometimes it's totally unintentional and it frustrates the other person. And giving grace on that. But gosh, like just last night, Jeremiah, I was telling my wife I was feeling stressed, and it's the holiday season. I was feeling stressed about providing a really awesome Christmas and whatnot. And man, like we had a conversation where it was talking about the small stuff. I was letting A, B, C, and D get to me. And one of the things that my wife got me about a year ago, and it was short-lived, but I still have it, and that was a gratitude journal. And so last night, she was like, Brian, like, you just need to get back to your gratitude journal. I was like, you know what? I think I actually do need to. Like, I could see, like, seeing those things that I am grateful for down on paper daily is going to be so healthy for me. And so last night I sat down right before bed, took 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do my gratitude journal. And man, I just put down the simple things. And it was like, I really am grateful for this. I'm grateful that I got to watch an hour of TV and snuggle up with my wife last night. I'm grateful that we have a beautiful house in Kansas. I'm grateful that for Christmas, we just get to hang out and laugh and enjoy each other. And man, I was absolutely letting those small things in life get to me. And so it's hearing you discuss that, and you have survived a heart attack and you have that reminder and whatnot, but gosh, like, it's so true. Like, being alive is such a blessing. It's such like just a beautiful thing, and we get so caught up with stuff. And I think, talking about letting things slide, grace and all that stuff, like, that's just fantastic to hear.
Yeah, right on, man. And that it just tells, like, all right, if small things are getting to you, one, it's because you care, right? And caring about other people and wanting to make their life experiences better is not a bad thing. But if it becomes your thing, then it's a bad thing, right? Like, it doesn't need to be just other people knowing that you care is enough. You know what I mean? It really is. And if they're missing that mark, if they're not recognizing that in the moment, that's okay, because maybe someday they will recognize that, and dude, I totally get it. We all want to create a platform. Like, here, great example. If my wife is unhappy, like if just for whatever reason, she's having a rough day or something, I really take that on myself. And I'm like, oh no, well, why am I working so hard? If you're going to be so unhappy, why do I go to work every day? Why do I try to give you every opportunity to be happy and you're still unhappy? Like, oh no, like, and it bums me out, right? Because I care so much about how she feels. But I have to recognize that that's just part of the ebbs and flows of life. Like, you're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. And everybody is, and we can't control how they feel about it, but we can work our butts off to provide a platform for those we care about to thrive. But it's such a fine line between being attached to their happiness and not. And I mean, my wife is a pretty happy person, but like, so when it happens, I really have a hard time. I totally get that feeling, right? Where you're like, I really want to provide a platform for those I care about to thrive. And if they're not thriving, then it's really hard to handle. But all we can do is just keep plugging away and doing, the stuff that's within our power. And dude, I mean, I hear you, man. There was no gem of wisdom there, right? It's just like, that's a truth of life, right? We wrap ourselves up in other people, and how they're doing,
Yeah. And we can't always, I think like, showing the care and showing the comfort is really awesome, actually. And I think that navigation does become tough. And I think that, in some ways you can't adopt what they're going through and whatnot. You can just, help them feel cared for and comforted, and, they're going to get through it and whatnot. But I think, one of the things that, goes a long ways with this, that my wife does a really good job with, and she'll see me kind of going through, roller coaster and just living life, and there's just, there's good days and there's bad days, mostly good days, but there's days where it's like, oh, I'm frustrated about this or that.
Yeah.
And, man, like, she does a great job of gentle reminders towards me, but she knows how to read me loud and clear too, so like, it was like, she's like, Brian, like, what the heck? I got you this gratitude journal a year ago and now you're not using it. But like, she like just gave me the gentle nudge of gratitude journal. And I was like, oh man, that's such a good idea. Like, I need to get back to it. I need to see concretely on written paper, like what makes me happy, what I'm grateful for. But I think like, I was also thinking about when you were describing that, how that navigation is so tough for really trying to jump into someone's kind of mental space and helping them. And I think sometimes it's just like, it's not our battle, and it's, we can provide that care and comfort, but that's not our battle. It's something that like they'll work through, they'll pop out the other side, they'll be better. And we just got to kind of trust in that.
No, 100, dude, as long as we're available and we care, right? That's all we can do,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So I got, as we're kind of wrap up here, Jeremiah, this has been a wonderful conversation. One thing that has been lingering in my mind is you went out surfing an hour and a half the day of your heart attack. You are a healthy man. You don't do drugs. You don't drink. You're just healthy all around. So how did this heart attack happen to someone like you?
Dude, so the cardiologist said something broke off the arterial wall, probably a plaque, even though all my cholesterol levels were normal, and created a 100% block, a full occlusion of the left anterior descending, which is the widowmaker heart attack. And it couldn't be predicted. It couldn't be prevented. Now, here's one thing that I don't remember where I heard it, but it rings so true. You don't exercise to prevent a heart attack. You exercise to survive it, right? Because it could happen to any of us. But if you have a higher rate of red blood cells, if you've got a lot of capillaries feeding different parts of your body from, consistent activity, you have a much higher likelihood of survival. So, I mean, not only for survival of a heart attack, but just overall health, both brain health and cardiovascular health, getting out, exercising, moving. I don't care if that means for you just walking to the end of the block and back, or if it means starting to run, bike, jog, get outside. I mean, just going outside is a blessing in itself, right? You go out and it's just, what a creation to be able to go and explore. Dude, you can't go wrong. It's so awesome. And it's great for brain. It's great for cardiovascular. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, dude, get exercise, man. Get exercise.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You make me want to just go on a 10-night backpacking trip right now.
Nice,
just be out in nature, go out to Might be a little snowy, but I was going to say Yosemite.
Oh, yeah, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, no, speaking of that though, me and my wife, we were talking, so we're trying to begin planning our summer trips for summer 2023. And it always happens at this time of year because I'm looking into the ultra running scene, like what races do I want to do? And I'm going to put my name into the lottery for High Lonesome West. And that lottery, I think, is the second weekend or so of January. And I'm going to find out if I got into that. If I don't get into it, then I'm going to most likely run Rabbit Run in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And then the last piece of our organizing the summer, well, there's a lot more pieces than what I'm describing right now, but a major piece is we are trying to go backpacking in Yosemite. We want to hit the northern part of Yosemite, and we would actually approach through an area called the Hoover Wilderness, which is kind of outside of Bridgeport area. I don't know if you've been through Bridgeport or not, but we were just talking about how me and my wife did a 10-night backpacking trip in the summer of 2021, and just how bonding it was and strengthening of our relationship. We were, out in beautiful nature, and, we're outside. We're also getting a lot of physical activity, and we're backpacking all day. We have a heavy pack on. But at nighttime, we didn't have anything else to turn to but each other. And we just, every night, we chatted and we laughed and we snuggled up and we stared at stars. And it just got me thinking, you're talking about just all the wonderful health benefits of being outside and recreating outside. You got the physical component, you got all the great mental benefits, decreased stress levels, decreased anxiety levels. And I just wanted to add to, I also feel like I just love how it strengthens relationships too. And maybe you can say maintains them instead of strengthens them, but it's a way that I just love connecting with others. And, I think you and I going running, we can go, hang out and go to a library and talk or whatnot and have the same conversation there, or we can have the same conversation while going up San Miguel Mountain for sunrise. And I'm going to tell you, one of those two options has a lot bigger impact on me.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, we could not see each other or even talk for another 15 years. And if I saw you somewhere or ran into you, it would be back. There's a bond that's made on the trail that is, dude, a lot of my best friends I met trail running, right?
Dude, it's the best.
Dude, I mean, if I saw you and I hadn't seen you for 10 years or talked to you, it'd be nothing but a huge hug and holy smokes, dude, let's go for another run.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, there's something about it that it's very bonding. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Man. Yeah.
Oh, Jeremiah, I'd love that. That would be a lot of fun. I would love to go running with you right now, man, and just go rock a 2-hour run and get some hills in, go see some beautiful views, and just be out in just beautiful nature. That'd be fantastic.
Man. That'd be killer. We'll try to make it happen, dude, when you're out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who knows, man? Maybe I'll see you out at a race or something, maybe pacing, who knows, or just crewing, having fun, giving back to others. But hey, Jeremiah, today has been a wonderful conversation. I want to sincerely say thank you for being willing to come and talk about this episode in your life. And, it's a lot. It's a big episode that threw out a lot of ripples, and, those ripples span pretty far, and, being comfortable to come onto a public platform and talk about that and the survival and whatnot. And, just talking to you, Jeremiah, is inspiring. I love how much you love life, and you're just like someone that I love how much that you are of a family man. You immediately waking up from your coma, where I'm so sorry I did this to you. I don't know what I did, but I'm so sorry. And you're just so selfless. And I really appreciate you coming on the show today. So huge thank you.
Yeah, right on, dude. Thanks for having me, man. Always great to catch up. Yeah, super stoked, dude.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Hey, I'm going to throw on some outro music and we'll call it a session here. Yeah. There we go.